Welcome back to 5 Acres Honey Farm. I'm Tara Lynn. If you are a new follower, I am a beekeeper in North Carolina, and I have apiaries in the Pittsboro area, which is near Raleigh Chapel Hill, and I also have some hives in the mountains of North Carolina near Bryson City, which is where I am right now. I wanted to let you know that this summer, the North Carolina State Beekeepers Summer Conference, I'll put a link to that in the description. I'll be presenting on natural beekeeping, and that's the second weekend in July, and it's in Flat Rock, which is just south of Asheville. And I am going to you're gonna see my apiary in Pittsboro next, where I had a queen miss the entrance, and this happens every year. So I can show you what happens when the queen does that. And I'm also going to take you in the hives here, and I got my first swarm out in the mountains here. And there's a lot of firsts, but you'll see the first swarm in the mountains, first time using plastic foundation, and a few other little nuanced things just with managing the hives. So hope you enjoy. Take a look at these ladies. They have totally capped almost every cell. So I'm planning to extract from these hives Memorial Day weekend. This box is too heavy for me to lift, and it's totally full, so there's no room for the queen to lay. So I've got a mixture of frames without foundation and frames with foundation in the top box. So I'm going to distribute those half and half so that I can actually lift these boxes. And that way I can check down here to make sure they're not going to swarm and take a lot of this with them. But that's the plan right now. I have pattern with the queens missing the hive entrance, and so this is the bottom of the bottom of the screen bottom board, and you might be able to see there are actually eggs in there. So the poor queen missed the entrance, and the workers are like, she has to do her job, so they started to build this comb. So the queen is somewhere in this clump, so I'm going to need both hands to get them back in the hive so she can actually lay in the hive. I scooped a few, and you can see they are marching down and in, so I'm fairly confident she's down there. I also looked all over this bottom board and I don't see her anywhere, so I'm fairly certain she went back in here. I am going to inspect these boxes so there's a chance I could see her. Queen Tessa was a little camera shy, so I couldn't find her to get a shot, but you can see she is successfully laying teeny tiny eggs. Well, I don't see too many on this side. Oh, they're there. Teeny tiny eggs. So now she has plenty of space to lay and lots of honey to share. Right, girls? Good girls. I just saw her, and of course she is a camera shy lady, and she was crawling underneath. Let me see if I can get her. She was like right in one of these ladies are coming to check things out. Yeah. All right, let's see if we can find her. I know she's on this frame. It's gonna rain any second, so I can't check inside, but my bait hive was successful. This is the first swarm that I've caught in the mountains with this hive, with the bait hive. I've rotated the past few years having it here in this, what should be a children's little play set that the previous owners were supposed to remove before we bought the house. And then I have a vision for it to be an emergency chicken coop in the event of some type of storm and stuff, that we could just bring the chickens here, but we've never got around to enclosing this. But I've had it here, and I've also moved the swarm trap let me zoom out a bit here. So the hives are right over there. And then there's a bit of a hill up here, and so there's a rock ledge on the other side of these trees, and I had it right up there on the tree line. The swarms generally like to pick a spot that's right on a tree line. Probably easier for them to wayfind, and this should be a nice spot for them to easily find, and it looks like it's a really big swarm. I've been watching them for a little bit here, and there are so many foragers, and I'm gonna take a peek in there to see how much space they're taking up. I'll check tomorrow, hopefully after this rain passes. And I don't have any equipment to move them into. So what I most likely will do is just kind of assess them and the other hives and see who's going to get the very limited equipment that I have, and then I need to make a plan for getting some more, because the closest beekeeping supply store to here, and this I'm near Bryson City, is an hour and a half away. So there's one in north of Asheville in Weaverville, Honey in the Hive, which is fantastic. And then there's also one in North Georgia, which if you follow Bob Binney's YouTube channel, Blue Ridge Honey. So they're both pretty much the same driving distance from here. And I believe they're both closed Sundays. So tomorrow, I'm just filming this on Friday evening. So tomorrow's Saturday, and I need to, one, check all the hives while the weather cooperates first thing tomorrow, and then decide if it's going to be worth driving an hour and a half to get equipment and then an hour and a half back, and hoping the weather will be in my favor so that I can actually give the bees the equipment. If the weather's not going to cooperate, then I will have no other choice but to wait until my next visit out here, because it wouldn't make sense for me to go get the equipment if I can't give it to them right now. Also just thinking all of this through as I'm explaining it to you too. But hopefully everything will work out, and then I can set this swarm trap up in another spot. So there might be some concerns. Some folks will say, like, once they get a swarm, that they go move it to a friend's house a few miles away, and then they bring it back a few days later. I've never had to do that but what I want to make sure with this one is once I move it, so what I'll do is I'll put like some pine straw or some leaves at the entrance, but I'll seal them up after sunset one night. I'll move them and keep them sealed until the morning, and in the morning that's when I'll put some pine straw and stuff at the entrance, and that will slow them down and they'll have to re-navigate. And then I don't want to put the swarm trap back here, because if any foragers get confused and come back here, I don't want them to just go to the swarm trap. So I'll put it in another spot and see if it's successful there too. I have a more remote place I would like to put it, but I've been researching different bear fencing because we don't have direct power out there. But we might have a solution. I'm trying to think of different things. So I'm just researching a lot about bear fencing, because as I've kind of explained in some other videos, like the way that the hives are all set up like in a line here, I have to do that right now because I need the secure bear fencing, but I don't want to manage bees that way. I want the hives to be spaced farther apart. And so at my other apiary in Pittsburgh, I have 3 different bee yards, and then I'm about to start a 4th one there. And so they're all 100 feet, approximately. Some are like 70 feet, but they're all, a good distance away from each other. And that's just a more in line with how honeybees would find themselves in the wild. They're not going to just line themselves up like, you see as the way that humans manage them. So yeah, lots of thoughts. And this is Sweet 16, hive number 16. Crazy, crazy. Good news and bad news. So I do have the swarm in here, but it also appears that bald-faced hornets had started to make nests, but perhaps the honeybees moved them out, because I see just kind of like those paper shells left. You can see the guard bees hanging out in there right up front. I'm gonna open this and see how they behave. If I need the smoker, I'll go get it. I fortunately collected pine straw yesterday while things were dry before the rain. We got 1.8 inches of rain from 3 a.m. till earlier this morning. It stopped raining around 7. So it's been very rainy. I'm imagining perhaps the bald-faced hornets are not there because I haven't seen any come and go yesterday or right now. And they're foraging and bringing pollen in, so I'm imagining there's brood in here. So we'll take a closer look. This took longer than expected, but I moved them out of, this was 9 frames in this double nuke, and I moved them into a 10 frame. Just got a message. So I moved them into a 10 frame, but I still left the 9 frames in there for now, primarily because it's mostly honey. There are a few frames of beautiful brood, but there's no more room for her to lay, and the population's really huge, so it's very heavy. So I don't have an inner cover on there now, and I didn't want to put the extra frame in because I will be moving this tonight behind the bear fence, and I just want to keep it as light as possible. It's going to be very challenging, so I'll be putting a strap around it. I've got the entrance reducer on now, so that way after sunset it'll be easier for me to duct tape the entrance reducer on and clog up that tiny entrance. And I don't have the truck this weekend, so I'm just gonna open up the back of my car. I'll be suited up and I can pull right up here, put it in the back, and drive over and get it on its hive stand, and hopefully that'll be good. As of this point, I know I definitely need a fresh box for them. So I don't even know what time it is right now. It feels like forever, and I'm sweating so much. So I need to semi-quickly check the 4 hives. I keep forgetting how many are here. Check the 4 hives that are over here, see what they need, and then I need to drive down to Georgia and get more equipment. So just what's happening today. This is an interesting frame and hive setup right now. So I split this almost a month ago. The last time I checked this was 2 weeks ago, and they had capped queen cells, but they still had some capped brood from the previous queen, which I just saw the previous queen over here, Queen Nat and Hala. And on here, I can't really hold this at the right angle, but you can see there's a capped queen cell here. There's actually another one on this side over here. And there is evidence, if you see on the center of the frame here, or semi-center, of queen emerging. So it appears the queen emerged. Perhaps she didn't mate well and they didn't want her, or maybe this hive swarmed and that's what I caught in the swarm trap, who knows. But they're creating a new queen right now, so it's nice. I don't have to worry about this hive swarming at the moment. They also are very slow in building out the top box that I gave them, so fortunately they don't need any more space, so that's a relief. And I've got 2 more hives to go. Looking in just the top box of this hive, I can see they definitely need more space. So I do have a box I can put on here, so I probably will do that in a moment. I do want to check and see that the queen is here, they haven't swarmed or about to swarm and such like that. But you can see, I mean, this one they haven't drawn out, but if you can see between the frames a bit, everything is drawn and looks very full. This is a really nice frame to look at. You can see a worker bee is emerging. There's also a drone. See, he's got a bigger capped cell, so little boy's coming out here. And if you look really close in all these cells, there's larvae of all different stages. And you can see them in there. Got some capped brood. But what I'm noticing on other brood frames is they're becoming honey-bound. And fortunately, there's another one emerging in here. Fortunately, all of the queen cups do not have eggs in them, and they definitely need another box. They filled the other one up since my last visit, so I'm about to give them a new box, and these girls will get to work. I was just about to put them away, and I said, let me check one more frame, and there she goes, Queen Okoe. I'm on the last hive now, but I'm going to make an executive decision not to inspect them. I can show you, they have very, very clearly filled out this top box, which I gave them 2 weeks ago. And if you've seen one of my recent videos, this particular hive is the one I call the creative hive. And they just have crazy burr comb throughout their brood chamber, and I intentionally gave them frames with foundation very tightly packed in this top box because I want them to build regular comb, and I'd like to cycle out all the craziness down there. This box, I can tell it looks too heavy for me to lift, so I would need to move half the frames out and then move the box, and I'm really running short on time. So I know what kind of equipment I need, and that way you can see how tall this one is now. It's crazy. So now I need to run down to Georgia, get the equipment, and the weather looks favorable this evening where I can get it on. So hopefully with this hive, if everything goes well, I won't be rushed. I can actually take a closer look, but I don't want to miss out on, one, I'm starving and really thirsty, and I need to shower prior to driving down there. But I'm gonna go straight there, get the equipment, and then have lunch. And again, I probably mentioned this in an earlier part of the video, it's an hour and a half away. So I need to go find a snack that'll hold me over until I get there and get stocked up. One last thing before I get showered and go get supplies. Something tried to get through the bare fence. The part that I extended, I have an earlier video about extending this bare fence at no cost, just using supplies we already had on hand. And one thing I just want to say that I'm really happy about, so before where I'm standing was the end of the apiary, and the fence was fixed along the side of the shed here. So now when I have to move that swarm, I can drive right up here and that part opens, so I don't have to carry a hive past all the other hives in a fairly narrow space, and I can rest it right here. So it sounds much easier than it will be, but it could be worse. I was just coming to make sure no bees were on here, and this gorgeous butterfly is hanging out on this terrible kudzu. I'm back from Georgia. So I went down to Blue Ridge Honey, and if you follow Bob Binney on YouTube, that's his honey shop. And fortunately, I wasn't expecting to see him there on a Saturday in the spring, but he was in, and I guess unfortunately, they didn't have the equipment that I wanted, but fortunately, Bob was there to explain some nuances of the equipment that I got. So one, I've never painted my hives before. My hives are all stained with Eco Dip, which is a mineral-based stain. And I like how natural they look and that they kind of blend in with the environment. However, at this time of the year, it's kind of slim pickings. So the only boxes that they had are painted white. So I really don't have a choice. They need the space. So I figured if it really does bother me, I can cycle them out over the winter and paint them brown then. So that was one thing that wasn't what I was expecting or needing really, or wanting. And then the other was that they didn't have any assembled frames. So one of the associates was showing me I could assemble them myself, and I'm not ashamed to admit, it's been almost 8 years. In 2 weeks, it'll be 8 years of beekeeping. I've never assembled my own frames. I've bought frames and like wired the foundation in, but I don't do that anymore. I was looking for a lesson on how to assemble frames, and then I was thinking, how am I gonna assemble 50 frames before sunset and get them on the hives and all that kind of stuff. Bob had come over and I saw they had assembled frames, and I thought this was wax foundation, but it's plastic. And he explained that these are dipped in wax. So right now in this area, because the honey flow is on, it's a good time to use these because the bees will just draw out the comb and fill it up. He did mention that in between flows, so if there's a dearth, the bees are prone to stripping the plastic foundation of the wax that it's coated with, and they'll use it with other projects in the hive, and then they're not going to use the plastic foundation. So that would put more work on me to have to go melt wax, which I don't have, and have to, so it's just like creating this like spiral of work. And then I would have to coat them in wax again and put them back in and all that kind of stuff. Being that it's a nectar flow and they need the space, taking a gamble, trying it out. And, you know, there's also benefits that he was explaining, you know, that they're, you know, great and reusable, and, you know, they're not going to break. Put them in the extractor, and they're going to, you know, they're not going to have any problems like some other frames may have, which I've experienced in the past. I'm going to label all of these so that I know that these are plastic and get them on the few hives that need it. And I also need to grab a ratchet strap and get that swarm strapped together, so that way at sunset, which I just looked up, I cannot believe, you know, it's you know, almost the end of May, 8:33 is sunset. So I'm gonna wait till about 9 o'clock, so it'll still be somewhat light out. They should really be in the hive by then, and get them moved over. And then one of these boxes that I've got down here is for them. I'm not gonna put it on tonight. I will wait till forage time tomorrow and then get that set up for them because they're bursting at the seams. So all is to say, I got pretty much what I needed, not really what I wanted, like the song goes, but you know, it's the middle of May during the nectar flow and I can't complain. I've got the ratchet strap on and now I can relax until sunset, and at that point we'll get this sealed up and move to its new home. Last night everything went really well right at sunset, so I've got them set up on their new hive stand, and you can see I put some sticks and pine straw in there to really slow them down so they can recalibrate their location. I'm going to take off the ratchet strap, and I have the new box of plastic foundation and I have an inner cover. So I'm going to take out the center frame, and one of the nectar frames on the sides here I'm going to take out and put in the center up here to help encourage them to build up into the new box, which I don't think they'll have trouble doing because things are nuts right now. The box is on. They were pretty calm considering they just moved and everything, and I added a little bit more pine straw branches to the front, and yeah, everything looks really good. They've got such a great population, so I'm hoping they take to the plastic foundation. And being that this is the first time I'm ever using plastic foundation, I am open to your suggestions, so please comment and let me know if you approve, if you don't approve. One thing that I thought was really funny was last night as I was getting the other boxes here, because I had to add space to a few other hives. So when I was picking up these mediums with the plastic foundation, I was like, wow, these are really heavy and it's just foundation. And then literally, like, I got inside, got changed, and my mentor, after I had texted him and told him I was using this foundation, he had texted me while I was out here and said, I don't want to use plastic foundation, it's so heavy, like he's sick of using it. And I'm like, great. So now I've got 5 mediums full of plastic foundation that I'll have to tolerate for a while, and just, I guess I'll just have to go through a cycle of experiencing it to really judge how I feel about it. But let me know what you think, and I will share more next time.